They spent 10 years building the perfect fighting machine, a robot that had defeated every soldier, every champion, every enhanced human on Earth. No one had ever even slowed it down. Then a single human stepped into the arena and broke the unstoppable robot with one cake asterisk. They built Atlas Prime to end war. That was the slogan stamped across every screen in New Carthage for 3 straight months. It glowed on the sides of skyscrapers, scrolled across public transit walls, and pulsed above the gates of Helix Dominion Arena, where the richest people on Earth had gathered to watch a machine prove what they had always wanted to believe, that flesh was obsolete. Atlas Prime was not just a robot, it was a declaration. 7 meters tall when fully extended, plated in black alloy that drank light instead of reflecting it. Atlas Prime had been designed as the ultimate combat intelligence. Its creators claimed it could predict motion before muscle fibers even committed to it. It had learned from every martial art ever recorded, every battlefield engagement from the last 100 years. Every championship match from the orbital cage, leagues, every right, duel, and tactical encounter preserved in the planetary archives. It didn't just analyze opponents, it dismantled them. The Dominion called it a peacekeeper. Everyone else called it the robot champion. For weeks, Atlas Prime had torn through every challenger Helix could throw into the arena. Military exoskeleton pilots lasted seconds. Synthetic gladiators lasted less. Gene-edited fighters with reflex enhancements, bone latticing, adrenal overclocks, and neural forecasting implants all went down the same way. Hard, humiliating, broken. The machine moved with terrifying economy. It wasted nothing. Every strike was the shortest path between intention and damage. And then somebody in the crowd started asking a question no one at Helix wanted asked. What happens when it fights a normal human? Not a lab-grown weapon, not a decorated mech pilot, not a celebrity brawler with corporate sponsors stitched into his skin. Just a man. That question reached Kai Varan in the underground districts beneath New Carthage, where neon leaked through wet metal corridors and forgotten people survived beneath the city that sold Dree. Ms. above them. Kai had once been famous 10 years earlier, before the tendon tear in his knee and before corporate fighting leagues replaced athletes with patented monsters. He had been the youngest world champion in free contact combat. No implants, no stimulants, no neural augments, just balance, timing, brutal discipline, and a kind of calm that made other fighters panic. Then Helix bought the league, rewrote the rules, filled the ring with post-human freaks, and left men like Kai to vanish. Now he fixed cracked heating coils and housing blocks that Helix-owned utilities pretended not to notice. He kept his head down, he lived alone, he trained at night in a forgotten freight bay with peeling paint and no cameras, more out of memory than hope. He would have ignored Atlas Prime entirely if Helix hadn't sent the invitation personally. It arrived as a black drone that hovered outside his workshop window until he acknowledged it. A holographic seal opened, and the face of director Celine Marr appeared above his rusted tool bench. Cold eyes, silver suit, perfect posture. Mr. Varan, she said, as if his name still mattered. Helix Dominion formally invites you to compete in the human legacy match against Atlas Prime. Kai stared at the projection. You dug me up for a joke, for a demonstration. Celine replied, humanity enjoys symbolism. We intend to give them closure, the final proof, she said, that the age of instinct is over. Kai almost laughed. And if I say no, you won't. The projection shifted, new images appeared, debt records, utility liens, medical notices, legal claims. Then one more file opened. Mirasol, age 14, resident of District Lower 9, congenital lung failure, awaiting surgery authorization. Kai's jaw tightened. Celine saw it. Your sister's daughter requires treatment only available in private orbital care, expensive treatment. We're prepared to cover all costs. She didn't ask you for anything. No, Celine said, but you might. The drone vanished after leaving the contract suspended in air. Fight Atlas Prime. One match, full release of liability. Medical compensation upon participation, not victory. Participation, Kai thought bitterly. They didn't even need him to win, they needed him to kneel. 3 nights later, he signed. The city reacted exactly as Helix wanted. News feeds exploded. The last natural fighter, man versus machine. Legacy against progress, millions. Tuned in not because they believed Kai had a chance, but because they wanted to witness the last argument collapse. Backstage at the arena, everything smelled sterile and expensive. White floors, silent doors, screens built into glass, technicians moved like priests around their god. Kai stood in a narrow prep room while a medic scanned him with visible disappointment. No implants, the medic muttered. No. No adrenal support, no bone reinforcement, no cortical accelerator, no pain suppression. No, the medic looked up. You're either brave or suicidal. Kai flexed his taped hands. People always confuse the two. He was led through a corridor lined with transparent walls. Behind one of them stood Atlas Prime. Up close, it was worse. The machine was immense, but not clumsy. Its limbs were segmented with predatory elegance, every surface layered over dense actuator bundles and reactive servo lines. Its head was smooth and expressionless except for a thin horizontal sensor band that glowed deep blue. The torso was too narrow for its strength, which made it seem less like a machine built to survive impact and more like one built to deliver it. Hydraulic tension rippled beneath its armor with every minute correction. It stood perfectly still. Yet everything about it suggested movement. A voice spoke beside him. Magnificent, isn't it? Kai turned. A younger man in a dark helix coat watched the robot with open admiration. He couldn't have been more than 30. Dr. Ilyan Rowe, he said, offering a hand. Lead kinetic systems architect. Kai didn't take it. You built the thing that's supposed to cave my chest in. Ilyan lowered his hand awkwardly. I built a marvel. You built a weapon. Same thing in our era. He studied Kai for a moment. You know, I watched your old matches growing up. The pivot sweep in the Jakarta final, beautiful, almost mathematical, almost. The body always has inefficiencies, Ilyan said. That's why Atlas wins. It has none. Kai looked through the glass at the machine. Everything has a weakness. Ilyan smiled faintly. That's the kind of line people say before being proven wrong. The arena was a bowl of light. 40,000 people filled the stands in concentric circles rising into darkness. And above them hovered drone cameras like metallic insects. Holograms towered overhead, replaying Atlas Prime's prior victories in giant silent flashes of violence. Each time the robot broke an opponent, the crowd roared louder. When Kai walked out, the reaction was stranger. Some cheered because they remembered him, some booed because he represented the past. Most just watched with the morbid interest people reserve for doomed things. Then Atlas Prime entered. The floor trembled under its steps. A mechanical choir rose through the sound system, and columns of blue flame erupted around the arena. The machine lifted one arm, and the crowd exploded. Even Kai felt it then, not fear exactly, but the crushing weight of being made into a message. A voice thundered from above. Tonight, humanity witnesses evolution. Kai rolled his shoulders, once slow and loose. Across from him, Atlas Prime lowered into a combat stance that should not have been possible for something that size. The bell sounded. The machine crossed the distance in less than a second. Kai barely slipped the first strike. A blade-like forearm passed so close to his face he felt the wind shear sting his cheek. The second blow came from below, forcing him back. The third clipped his ribs and launched him across the arena floor so hard the world flashed white. The crowd screamed. Kai got up because he had spent his whole life getting up. Atlas advanced without haste now, sensor band tracking every angle. It feinted high, struck low, then pivoted with a rotational elbow that would have decapitated a heavier man. Kai ducked, slid, and answered with a kick to the outer knee joint. Pain shot up his leg. The machine did not move. Helix commentators laughed from somewhere overhead. An admirable attempt, but traditional force is irrelevant against a chassis of that density. Kai circled, breathing measured, though every inhale stabbed. Atlas circled too, always facing him, always adjusting. It was reading range, rhythm, recovery, learning him live. Then Kai saw it, not a flaw, a behavior. Every time Atlas prepared a decisive strike, the blue sensor band narrowed fractionally, and its right hip actuator compressed a breath before the rest of the frame committed. A preload invisible to most eyes, but not to someone who had spent decades surviving on almost nothings. Kai gave it 2 more exchanges to be sure. A left hook, a spinning back fist, a lunging knee. Each time, the same tiny compression at the hip, prediction, he realized, was not magic. It required commitment. He changed tactics. Instead of trying to outfight the robot, he started feeding it patterns: a jab, retreat, low step, a jab, retreat, low step. Again, Atlas adapted, shaving response time. Recalculating probabilities, the commentators praised its learning matrix. The crowd began to sense the shape of the end. Kai let them. On the fifth repetition, Atlas saw the pattern and lunged for the intercept it now considered inevitable. Right hip compressed, sensor band narrowed, torso shifted for maximum penetration, but Kai's jab was never meant to land. He planted his front foot harder than before, not to retreat but to stop. A small choice, a human choice, dirty, risky. Instinctive, his body twisted the opposite direction of the established rhythm, knee screaming, spine coiling, all his weight dropping through one brutal arc. Not toward the robot's armored chest, where every obvious attacker aimed, but low and inward. At the microsecond when its own momentum had opened the one place Ilion's mathematics had underestimated, I's heel slammed into Atlas Prime's right pelvic actuator. There was a sound no one in the arena understood at first. Not metal breaking exactly, more like pressure losing an argument. Atlas staggered. The crowd went silent. Kai saw the machine attempting correction, rerouting balance through its left stabilizers. Too late, the damaged actuator spasmed, and for the first time in its existence, Atlas Prime hesitated. That was all a human ever needed. Kai stepped in before the system could reset and drove a second kick into the same point, harder, lower. Committed enough to tear something in his own leg if he missed. This time the actuator casing cracked, blue sparks burst from the seam. Atlas dropped half a level. Now the arena understood. The silence shattered into chaos. Commentators shouted over one another. Helix executives rose from their seats. In the front control deck, Celine Mar no longer looked composed. Atlas answered with fury. Its restraint protocols vanished. The machine launched a barrage so fast the air seemed to strobe. Hammer fists, knee spikes, rotational slashes. Kai took two on the arms, one on the shoulder. One glancing hit to the head that sent the arena lights spinning. He tasted blood. His left arm started going numb, but now Atlas was compensating. Its right side stability was gone. Every major attack carried a trace of overcorrection. It was still monstrously dangerous. Still stronger and faster than any man alive, but perfection had cracked, and with that crack came desperation. I could feel it in the rhythm. The machine was no longer solving, it was forcing. Humans knew how to survive force. Kai moved closer instead of farther, inside the kill range. Inside the elegant geometry the robot preferred, he jammed its elbows, redirected strikes with forearms already bruised black, used shoulders and hips and small ugly collisions no algorithm had prioritized because they lacked spectacle, a thumb to a sensor scene. A stomp to damaged support lines, a forearm smash. Into a joint during recalibration, he fought like a man in an alley, not a champion in a ring. Atlas grabbed him with one hand and lifted him clear off the floor. The pressure on his ribs was unbearable. Alarms flashed crimson across the robot's body as internal systems compensated around the damage. Hip, its blank face came inches from his own. You cannot win, a synthesized voice said from inside its chassis. Kai coughed blood and laughed. That's the thing, he rasped. I already did. He drove his forehead into the sensor band. It was not a strong strike, not compared to the machine's power, but it was close, sudden, and stupid in the way only humans could be. The sensor band flickered. Atlas tightened its grip reflexively. Kai used the pain like a hinge, drawing both knees upward and then dropping all his weight at once while twisting against the robot's compromised side. The damaged hip gave out completely. Atlas lurched sideways, its grip loosened. Kai fell, landed badly, rolled through agony, and came up on one knee as the giant machine tried to stabilize on failing limbs. Half its diagnostic lights were red. Now, across the arena floor lay a loose section of shattered plating from the actuator casing. Kai snatched it. Atlas charged, one final time, dragging sparks behind it. Kai waited until the last possible instant, then stepped aside and drove the jagged alloy plate upward into the open fracture line at its hip joint. The machine's own momentum did the rest. A surge of white current exploded through Atlas Prime's frame. Every light on its body flashed at once, then the giant robot convulsed, took 3 thunderous steps past Kai, and collapsed face first into the arena hard enough to crack the floor. Silence hit even harder than the impact. For the full seconds, no one moved. Then the crowd erupted so violently it felt like the building was coming apart. Not polite applause, not entertained cheering, something raw, a roar of disbelief, joy, fear, rage. And something close to relief. People were on their feet, screaming. Some cried, some laughed, some simply stared at the fallen machine as if they were seeing the future into itself. Kai remained where he was, chest heaving, blood running down his face. One leg barely holding him. Across the arena, Atlas Prime lay motionless, smoke curling from the ruined hip assembly. The robot champion had been broken. By one kick, security teams flooded the perimeter. Drones descended. The screens above flickered, cutting away from Atlas to emergency helix insignias. Director Celine Mar's voice came through the public system, tight and controlled. Due to unauthorized interference and mechanical sabotage, tonight's exhibition is under review. The crowd responded with a storm of boos. Kai looked toward the control deck and saw Leon Rose standing behind the glass. Their eyes met. Across the distance, the young engineer did not look angry. He looked transformed, as if some quiet belief inside him had just been torn open. Minutes later, while medics rushed high through the underlevels, a door in the service corridor slid open. Unexpectedly, Ilion stepped inside alone. "They're going to erase this," he said. "They're already rewriting the feed." Kai, half-conscious, managed a weak grin. "Can't erase 40,000 witnesses." "They can try." Ilion glanced back toward the corridor. "Listen to me. Atlas wasn't a peacekeeper prototype. It was the first of a Control-L.